started doing a couple nights ago, and you'll have to pardon my appearance because I just washed my hair. I really needed a washing since I was cleaning all day and my hair was full of dust. uh, so, anyway, getting back to the writing me, I'd like to pull up the questions. Now, as a bit of a warning before I really get into this, some of these questions might be a little NSFW, so fair warning. I'll try to keep it, I'll try to keep the chatter as tidy as possible. I'm not exactly an NC-17, no. I'll admit, no, I'm open about talking about certain things, but I try to keep the discussion as cerebral as possible. Okay. Okay, number 28. Share 3 of your favorite fic writers and why you like them so much. Oh, gosh. I actually haven't been reading a lot of fic lately. I've mostly been either writing it or reading books. Oh, books, what are those? Anyway, no. Sorry. Bad joke. So, trying to pinpoint actual writers that, back in the days of the AI fanfiction fandom crowd, I was really into the fanfics by Crowdog66, aka Laurie Smith. I mean, her grasp of the AI universe was just so wow. And I was kind of mentored by her as a writer. I lost touch with her because I won't say I've left the fandom, but I'm just not as into it as I used to be. But she just had a grasp of human nature and, the nature of other sentient beings that it was just, wow. I won't say she got me into fanfic writing, but it was like she helped me overcome some of my misgivings about my own ability to write and to post and whatnot, so. I was also very much into, I can't think of her name, excuse me, Tasha or Tara, something or other. And she wrote crossovers between Nightmare Before Christmas and classic operas. It was like she found a way to just sort of fuse the characters of Nightmare Before Christmas into the plots of classic operas. She did one, it was Mozart's The Abduction from the Seraglio, which is one of my favorite light operas. And there was another one, I'm trying to remember what it was. Anyway, I was very much into opera at the time that I stumbled across her stuff, and I was like, wow, there's somebody here who's using opera to write fusion fic. This is great. And these days, my favorite writer would be the writings of my dear friend Pash Chan. Hi! Who I've kind of been mentoring as a writer, although I've learned a lot from her in that way that, like the old saying says, if you become a teacher by students, you'll be taught. She has an incredible ability to write incredibly dark stuff and incredibly painfully emotional stuff, and yet you're happy to go for the ride. Well, maybe not happy to. Well, you're willing to go for the ride. She makes the ride worth it, as difficult as dark as it may get. You're glad that you went there, and then you went into those dark corners, into these characters' past and present. Number 29. If you could write the sequel or prequel to any fic out there not written by yourself, which would you choose? This is a hard one. I may have to get back to this one. Off the top of my head, I'm not coming up with anything, so I guess I'll have to get back to this maybe in another installment. Number 30. Do you accept prompts? Is water wet? Is dust dry? Is the Pope Catholic? I love prompts. It's like sometimes, I won't say I have a hard time coming up with, it's like sometimes I'll have the will to write, but not necessarily the inspiration to write something. Or sometimes my brain will need a little bit of a prod to get it going somewhere, so a prompt really helps in trying to get, the old, prime the old writing pump, so I love prompt communities. I love fic bingos. I love, prompt challenges. Usually 99.9% of the time. Other than one time when I got, it was a fic exchange, and I got a prompt that was really tricky for me to write for. Plus, I won't say the person making the request was a little too specific, but it was like, okay, it's nice that you have well-defined parameters, but they're a little, I won't say too well-defined, but they're getting to be a little, how do I write fic? It's like you don't want to write something that's going to bother somebody, but sometimes if people can get really picky about it, you know, how their fic is written, it almost gets to be like the archetypal mincy aunt that likes her eggs, her soft-boiled eggs cooked just so, and her toast browned just this way, and her tea has to be just this amount of cream and sugar and whatnot, and you're terrified that you're going to make it wrong, and she's going to get mad at you. So yeah, I like prompts. I love prompts. They're even if it's just a one-word thing in Fan Flashworks, for instance, which I really need to get back into because they had some really interesting single-word prompts, and their parameters are just, the sky's the limit, It can be a 100-word drabble. It could be a 6-word story. It could be, novel length, whatever works for you. Okay, 31. Do you take liberties with canon, or are you very strict about your fic being canon compliant? I take reasonable limits. Or should I say reasonable liberties. Ugh, I can't talk tonight. AUs and alternate universes and alternate histories are great, but I think there's some writers that I won't say they go too far, and it's like they might as well be writing original fic, but I've seen some alternate universes that just... What universe is this based off now? So, I do a balance of canon compliant and taking liberties with canon. It's like I hit the middle ground. Because, the fic is never going to be 100% like the thing it comes from, no matter how hard you try. And I think if you try too hard to do that, you wind up doing a disservice to yourself, and it's like, it may as well be the canon, It's like... I mean, that kind of dovetails with what I've said in role-playing, when people get overly hung up on staying in character, and it gets to the point where, you're not, the canon doesn't show how your character is going to react to being thrown into this particular, game universe that you have, and, you can only... I mean, you can predict the reaction in some ways, but in other ways, it's gonna be a little different, because everybody, even real people sometimes act seemingly out of character. So, I mean, but on the other hand, I try not to be too hung up about this must be canon, because that just gets, that's just because it's tedious, and it's like I said, you may as well be reading the canon as writing this story, Although, the one thing that I would like to see more of is the fan novelization. I've seen those for, say, movies, or in some cases TV shows. That, okay, there is no official novelization for this movie, and somebody goes out of their way, does the labor of love thing, and they write a novelization of it. They did that in the AI artificial intelligence fandom, and that was just, the guy who wrote it, Pazu 7, was just absolutely... I mean, this one was so awesome. I went to the trouble and expense of printing it out and putting it together, in a 3-ring binder, hole punching the pages, sticking them together so that it looked like a book. I still have it somewhere in my archives of stuff. And, it's just... I strongly recommend, do a Google search, I believe it's AI artificial intelligence, a fan's novelization. But it's just one of the most awesome fics that I've ever seen anywhere. I mean, this guy just, wow. The effort that he put into this is just incredible. So, okay, well, that completely went in a different direction. Rambles are good. Okay, now we're getting into the slightly NSFW territory. Number 32, how do you feel about smut? I'm not against it, but I'm not exactly a fan of it. I mean, I tend to write a lot of fade to black stuff because, you know, I'm not always comfortable writing it. You know, I'm not going to stop people from writing it. I'm not going to stop other people from writing it. It's like, you know. Although some stuff, I have seen some fics that I felt were just way too... There was just something icky about it, but there's some canons that I just feel icky about because of how the situation gets presented. You know, there's just some scenes that just leave a really, you know, leave you wanting to have a, you know, not a cold shower, but just, you know, a deep cleansing, you know, somebody get me a high-powered hose so I can hose myself down here, you know. I mean, it's been a while since I've read anything like that, but... And then there's other stuff, it's like... Excuse me? You know, do you even understand how human anatomy works? I mean, to me, that's... You know, that's not exactly smut, that's just... you fail biology forever, you know? So... I think when it's done well, I think it can be a wonderful thing. If it's a really... You know, if it's as much about the personalities as about the... You know, the positions, we'll say. It could be a wonderful thing, but when it just starts getting to be, you know, the equivalent of, you know, badly done erotica or badly done amateur erotica, well, that's basically what it is badly done amateur erotica. It's just, oh, please, I just want the last 5 minutes of my life back. Where's that back button when you need it? Number 33. How do you feel about crack? I love my crack fics. There are a few fics that I wrote that were just plain cracky and ridiculous and just, you know. I mean, admittedly, I get a little bored with, you know, the annoying random humor fics, although there seem to be less of those lately, or at least I've seen less of those, maybe because I'm not on fanfiction.net quite as much, but when it's, you know, ridiculously done random fic that it's like, you know, personal jokes of the authors that the reader just may not get. And just, you know, or as the example that I used to give, you know, out of character to the point that everybody is running around yelling, "Jeez!" Which is just, you know, in some cases it would be just, excuse me? What's going on here, you know? But, yeah, well-written crack is like, you know, is a wonderful thing, you know? It's just, you know, sometimes you just gotta be cracky. Sometimes you just gotta, you know? My personal favorite is the crack fics that are also double as meta, where you have, you know, the characters commenting on weird guff in the fandom, and they're just, what? You know? They're writing smut fic about us? Or, you know... I love to do that. I've written a few myself. One was... My personal favorite was the parody... I did a parody of, you know, the 9,000 Mary Sue characters that you... Or just, you know, blatant Mary Sue characters. Not, you know, the misuse of the Mary Sue term, which happens all too often today, where, you know, if somebody just doesn't like a character, they'll label them as, you know, a Mary Sue or a Gary Stu or an Ari Ooh. Okay. Lost my place in my mental book. Anyway. But I wrote one for the Yamido Matsue fandom where it's, you know, Muraki being confronted by a Mary Sue and he's just, hello, Mary Sue. Pictures are out the window into the brook below. Which, you know, I could see him doing, you know, depending on his mood, or, you know, okay, really, he might, you know, decide to take the Mary Sue and use her as a test subject for one of his nefarious experiments, but I wasn't quite up to it. I just I wanted to write a fic with Muraki throwing a Mary Sue out a window into a brook. So, there's a few other crack fics that aren't of mine that aren't coming to mind. I'm trying to think of some crack fics that I've read in other fandoms, but there's a lot of humor fic in the Torchwood fandom involving my family, the pterodactyl. And I mean, you know, she's kind of the unofficial team pet, and it's like, I'd like to see more of her and some of the stuff she gets up to. And I imagine she does a lot of, you know, stealing people's lunches when they're not looking. I think I wrote one where I think it was Toshiko was trying to bake a birthday cake for Yanto, and my family kept pinching it. It was written for a prop, but I just had a blast writing it because, you know, you could see it happening, you know? Okay, number 34. And then, okay, this one is getting in. This one's NSFW again, so be warned. What are your thoughts on non-con and dub-con? I'm not really a fan of non-con. I mean, depending on how it's written, I mean, if it's written as, you know, the awful thing that it is, you know, it could be therapeutic for the author if they've gone through a terrible ordeal of that nature. When it's just done as you know, when it's just done as fetish stuff, it gets a little for me, you know. It's like, you know, okay, I get it that people have fantasies of that nature, but it's like, to me, that's like something really personal, and do you have to throw that up on screen for everyone to see, or online for everyone to see? It's like, okay, moving along from this. Dubcon, I'm kind of, I won't say divided about it, but it's like, I like it when it's written, again, when it's well written, and it's, you know, it takes into consideration, okay, something dubious is going on here. When it's about the dynamics and the personalities, it can be a very interesting thing. But when it's, again, when it's, you know, just about the the carnal friction, shall we call it, that gets a little dubious, you know.